So to get my bends for my corners, I use a piece of 2x4 and a simple hammer, and I've counted out, this will be one of my sides, I've counted out 9 squares, and I placed a 2x4 down. And next thing I'm going to do is bend up the wire against the 2x4 and give it a little gentle tap with the hammer, and then I'll continue 24, 9, and 24, and that'll make a square. Here's my first bend. You can just see I just bent the wire up and gave it a little tap on this side of the board with a hammer, and it starts to bend up, forming the corners of your cage. Now I've crimped one of these on every section of the cage all the way down. It went really quick using these. Now you could use zip ties, or like I said before, when you cut your wire, if you were to leave your wire long, you could use that wire to wrap around each one of these. It'd be a lot cheaper. It's about $15 for the crimpers, about $5 for a bag of these wire crimpers, but it's very quick if you use those, and so that's what I use. Now I've got my back end of the cage tacked in. I've got it all the way around, sealed with clips every so often. And now I'm going to start working on the ramps for the front side of the trout. What I've done here is cut another piece of wire to match the front piece, but this piece is going to be part of my ramp, and there's no science to it. I just kind of eyeball it. So your ramp is going to fit in here, and because this is 9, there's no really even way to do it. So I'm going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, and my ramp is going to go down this way, and I'm going to attach it at number 4 at an angle. And that's going to be the ramp that the turtles climb into. Here I've got my entry ramp on, and like I said, there's no real kind of science to that. I just went 4 squares over, and that's kind of the angle that I tried to go. I've clipped every so often. I need to put one about right here and one about right here. But you can see I've clipped this side going that way, clip that, and then here's the entrance looking into the trap where the turtles will climb up into the. Now I've got my top hinge piece cut out, but I wanted to show you the difference here. On the ramp going in on the bottom piece, I have the wire turned this way, which is like a 2-inch step for a turtle climbing in. But if I made my wire that way, then it would be too wide, and I would have to cut off 4 inches from one side in order to give me a little bit of freeway on the sides. So I made sure that I turned my wire that way, so I only have to have 2 inches off of the side. And you can see by doing 2 inches off the side, I have about a 1-inch gap on each side, and a turtle's not going to be able to get in or out that 1 inch gap. The other important thing, as you can see here, I've left the runners here, the little pieces here, and I'll show you why that's important. Next thing I'm going to do is hinge this at the top, and that's going to make my hinge. Now I've got the top portion hinged up, and you can see now what I was talking about is by turning your squares this way, where it's 2 inches across the top, you've got about 1 inch on both sides, so that the hinge top doesn't hit your sides at all. And up here, I just lightly attached these clips. I didn't do that very hard. That way the hinge can swing free. And like I said, I left these long runners so that when the trap is shut, I can bend the ones on the in and outside to leave a little gap. And I'm fixing to bend those now, and then I'll show you what that looks like. What I've done now is I took just the very far outside trailing wires and I've bent them back towards the ramp. You can see this one, it's just barely sitting on the ramp there. You have to play around with the shape of your top, and you can see that one's on there a little bit more. What that does is it gives a nice little hole for the turtles to climb into, and then if they're large enough turtles, most of the time they're going to push up on the top as they go in, and then when it comes back down, that's what you're going to get. And of course the turtles can't climb back up against these spiky trailers there. Now I installed a couple of little braces inside. I think you can see it better if I turn the cage down like this. So on each one of the corners, I installed a brace on the inside to kind of stiffen the cage up a little bit. On the top side, I came all the way to the corner of the cage and I ran down. I could have gone a little bit further, I guess, maybe, but I was just using some scraps left over from cutting out the wire. And then on the bottom side, I came a little bit closer and ran that up. It doesn't go all the way to the corner. So there's a little bit of bracing throughout, and I think it makes the cage a lot stiffer, which is going to work really well. Again, the trap works that way, and I've caught multiple turtles in my other one, so I know that once they trip it initially, more turtles can get in. But when I set it out in the pond, I like to place these sides like that. That way it gives a nice big opening for the turtles to go in, and once the top of their shell hits it as they go in, when it falls back down, now there is no gap. Very simple. Here's my completed little bait trap. Just kind of put it together pretty quick out of some hardware cloth, a few zip ties, and I made a little top that's kind of funnel shape so I could place the fish guts and heads and whatever from fishing down in there, and that's my bait. And I'll hang this from the inside of the trap. Here's my finished trap. I've got my bait container hung in there, and you can see here's the entrance to the trap. Again, turtles go in. This one I built with some extra corner braces to stiffen up the cage a little bit from the last one that I built. The last one was doing just fine, but thought I may want to make this one a little bit sturdier. Let me put some bait in there, get it out in the pond, and see what happens.